at 1:31.
Rapid.
We're trying to get this started.
Trying to get it.
I'll second that.
Some quick housekeeping according to new CDC guidelines. If you are vaccinated, completely vaccinated, feel free to remove your mask. If you are still not yet vaccinated, you'll be required to wear a mask. And if you just feel more comfortable continuing to wear it, please do so. Let's start with call to order and roll call.
Commissioner Barfield. Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Merritt.
Here.
Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Commissioner Matlow.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Here. Good for us.
That's everyone.
All right, are there any agenda modifications today?
No, sir.
Do we have citizen comment, citizens to be heard?
We had no one sign up
Correct.
online or in person, so we have.
Okay.
Move consent.
Second.
Has anything been pulled from consent?
No, sir.
All right, we have a motion for consent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. On to Part 6A, Star Metro Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, this is one of the series of performance measures that we're required to adopt by federal law. And I'm going to turn it over to Greg Burke for an introduction.
Okay,
Greg.
great. With us, we have staff from Star Metro to do a presentation on their public transit agency safety plan. Also associated with this item is a resolution for the CRTPA to adopt this plan, which is one of the requirements of TPM, or Transportation Performance Management, which the CRTPA is required to address. With that, I will send it over to Rosemary with Star Metro.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Bosby from Star Metro. I'm the Operations and Compliance Manager, and today we're presenting the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or the PTAS for Star Metro. To give you a little bit of insight behind it, it's the final rule 49 CFR, which is part of 673, which requires certain public transportation agencies that are receiving FTA grant funds to develop an agency safety plan. In that safety plan, we will also have the procedures and processes for implementing Safety Management System, or SMS. This rule was effective July the 19th, 2019, and the agencies have until July the 20th of 2021 in order to have it developed and get it approved by the different agencies. This date was extended due to COVID. The original date was December of 2021. So Star Metro presented the PTAS to Florida Department of Transportation for review and approval on January the 27th, 2021, and we are now requesting the CRTPA board acceptance today. The 4 pillars of SMS that we reference will actually have the safety policies and procedures, safety risk management, safety assurance, and also safety promotion. We have here our targets, our safety performance targets. These safety performance targets are based on the National Public Transportation Safety Plan. In here, you will see that we have all for our fixed route, and it references our ADA, or paratransit system. These numbers are based on 100,000 miles of revenue service per 100,000 miles. I think that concludes my presentation.
Excellent.
That was
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion on the floor in a second. Any comments on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent presentation.
Yes. It was so good, the thing just blinked.
It was unanimous, unanimously
That
good.
was your signal.
On to 6B, CRTPA fiscal year 23 to 27 Transportation Alternatives Project Priority List.
Chairman, actually, Mr. Burke will be presenting this one as well.
Okay. Good afternoon, members. 'Tis the season to adopt the TA project priority list. Quick background over this process and the CRTPA TA program. We coordinate, actually, the CRTPA's solicitation and ranking of TA applications every year. We do this every 2 years. We solicit applications. So the projects that are on the list that we are considering today are actually those that were solicited last year. Guiding the process for the CRTPA TA program is actually the two subcommittees of the CRTPA, which are the CMAC and the TAC, who actually recommend the ranking of these projects on the project priority list that you are seeing today. In terms of the schedule for this year, late April, we held a virtual public meeting to present the project priority list to the public. Submitted this May 4th to the committees for their recommendations. We're here today to seek your approval of this list, and subsequently, we will actually submit that to the FDOT as they consider funding for the state work program that we will find out about in the fall of this year. And then this process starts all over again in December of 2021 when we actually solicit new applications from the four-county area. Now, in terms of the list this year, we have three projects on there. First two are bike path projects submitted by Wakulla County. The last one, the third one, is actually a sidewalk project submitted by Gadsden County. As some of you may remember last year's list, the number one recommended project was actually a good project, US 90 sidewalks in Quincy, just east of downtown. That one has received full funding, both in this year for design as well as construction in the next 2 years. So we're excited about that. And with that, I can open this up to any questions you may have.
Any questions, members?
Motion to approve.
A second.
And Wakulla thanks you.
Got a motion on the table by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, real quick, as Greg mentioned, we'll start this program, our cycle back over in December of this year. One of the things we've kind of discussed at the staff level, and we'll bring this back to you all probably later in the year for more policy direction, but in the TA program especially, we only get allocated about $350,000 a year. So when you look at the first priority, that's about $750,000, a little less. You know, that's a fairly workable project. But when you look at the other two, we're at $1.5 million or $3.1 million. One of the things we've kind of talked about is possibly either capping the amount of these projects or setting them up as, you know, that agencies can apply for a certain amount of funding, because when you look, especially the other two, that's about 15 years worth of TA funding on projects 2 and 3. So this project's probably better geared towards smaller projects like the first one, but just wanted to throw that out there and let you know that's something we're contemplating. We'll bring back to you for some discussion probably later on this year.
Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that is a good idea. Greg, do we also have the ability to match the funding with other bike ped projects that may be funded from other sources?
Yes, ma'am, we do have that possibility, yes.
Okay, so if one of our other projects were to rank pretty high, get funded, we could look at that as a scenario, and
Sure.
or having criteria when you apply, it has to meet a certain.
Right. And that's what you'll see next month when we bring you our priorities for like bike and ped projects and things like that. We reworked the list a little bit to set it up for more what we call opportunity projects. We did this a couple of years ago with the Bluntstown sidewalks. We put in some of the CRTPA's SU money. There was some City of Tallahassee money and some DOT money that came together to put that project together. So that's kind of the thought, is we could kind of treat this the same way, but just some of these, again, when you're getting $1.5 million, $3 million, quite frankly, we're probably never going to get these done through the TA program. So we think we might need to revamp that a little bit. But there's always that opportunity, if other funds become available, to put sort of, you know, a different pots of funds to get projects done.
And Mr. Chair, just one follow-up. I assume part of the problem with aligning these different pots of money is that we have different schedules for approval. We've got to look at the TA projects now. We have to look at bike ped. We don't know what else is going to be funded until the fall, as Greg said.
Correct.
So it would be ideal if they let us do it all on the same schedule and we could look at the list as a whole, but that's just kind of impossible.
Right.
Is that right?
We could do that to a point, but yeah, we do have some, you know, some set guidelines or deadlines that we're supposed to meet on these. But I think we've always got the flexibility to come back, and I think that's what you'll see in the future. You know, I'm trying to think of a single project, but again, just more of that opportunity kind. You know, there's some money that we have available. There's some that possibly Blueprint or Leon County, Gadsden County, or something, and just have the flexibility to be able to put some more issue money into some of those projects as those opportunities. Like I said, that's the word I like to use for these is, you know, if there's something there we can get done, let's get it done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm trying to think of other questions so we can extend the meeting for Commissioner Merritt, because he really wants to stay here for a while, but that's all I've got. Thanks.
That's what
Order
you're
the length of
saying.
the meeting was completely up to her.
Any additional comments, Mr. Merritt? Commissioner Williams-Cox?
I was gonna say, that's how your friends do you. Mr. Chair and Mr. Executive Director, for those projects that you just mentioned, the ones that are, you know, beyond the amount of monies that we have, how would we then communicate that to those projects to let them know that we're revamping, this is how it's going to be done going forward, so you may need to begin to look for additional funding sources and whatever? How would we communicate
Yes,
that?
ma'am. If you noticed, I think Greg had that last slide said that we start that process in December, and that we go through notifying all the local governments. So it will be part of that package that goes out, letting them know that we've kind of reworked the funding portion of this. You know,
Okay.
when we initiate that call for new applications, it would be part of that information package that goes out with that.
Okay, and my follow-up question to that, or a different question is, with the potential infrastructure bill that President Biden is looking at, have we thought about how that might impact what we're trying to do here with some of these projects that might lend itself to, if it passes, it would lend itself to being able to do more with those dollars, if those dollars came down the pipe?
Oh, most certainly. I think everybody's trying to kind of figure out what that process would be. We've actually had some initial discussions with the DOT as to how they're going to approach it. There's really, and I was going to talk about this under my comments, but I can go ahead and do that now. There's two potential pieces of it. The FAST Act, which is our federal reauthorization, transportation authorization, expired last September. There's talk that a new federal authorization package will be part of what he's proposing. There's also talk of additional funds going along with that. So I think the direct answer to your question is yes. I think that'll open up a lot of opportunities. We just need to have some projects that are in position to move forward along those lines. We had some conversations with Congressman Lawson's office last month. I'm sure most of you heard, kind of out of the blue. They resurrected earmarks, but it's not the earmarks that we're all used to from 10, 12 years ago. What we were told was each member, they're terming them member projects now, and each member is getting about somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million to dole out to their respective districts. We actually submitted for our organization a sidewalk project on North Monroe Street, a missing sidewalk link. Because of the amount of money that they had available to stretch across, in his case, I believe it's 9 counties, we felt to do something a little smaller would have a better chance to get funded. I don't know that the traditional kind of wide-open earmark process doesn't seem to be there, but we'll be monitoring all that to kind of see how they move forward with that, and again, try to get in a position to take advantage of any opportunity that might come up.
Okay, and one additional question. Sorry,
No.
Mr. Mayor.
I was just,
I have been receiving information. I've been forwarding it to Congressman Lawson's office, but there's been great interest in the rail service coming through here. Have you all been getting that? I have a person whose job is to keep me posted on what's happening out west to the rail and want to know why we're not making that connection here. So is any of that in the plans or any discussion, thoughts, prayers of anyone?
I know there's been discussion, but that's a whole nother subject. I know in the past, DOT has not really been, I don't want to say interested, but has been reluctant to get into that particular piece of it. You know, probably back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I believe it was Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida initially looked at supporting that rail service. I think it's called the Sunset Limited through on to Jacksonville. Florida, for whatever reason, chose not to participate in that. We've actually had some conversations with the company, and this goes back probably 2 years ago. I think it's called Rail USA that basically bought this Panhandle rail service from CSX. They were already looking for funding to upgrade that rail. From what they told us, there were pieces of it that they were going to have to downgrade to 10 miles an hour because the track is in such poor condition. I forget, but it's in the several millions of dollars that are needed to upgrade that track to where it would handle passenger service. I know I have questions when you look at Amtrak service in the state of Florida, probably over the last 10 years, their ridership is steadily declining. So I would have some serious questions about, what's the viability of that rail in terms of passenger service. Probably if you all want to, this would be something that we want to agenda for a future meeting, because honestly, I have not looked at this stuff in a couple of years, so I'd want to go back and kind of brush up on some of that information from the past where the discussions have gone on.
Mr. Chair, if there's no opposition to that,
I would love to ride a train from Tallahassee to New Orleans, so no opposition from me.
If that's emotional, second it.
Yeah, let's say, we'll vote on it. That's,
okay.
all those in favor of the motion on the table to bring back an item on an update on rail service?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair. One thing, because Greg and I actually talked about this a couple months ago at length. The state of Mississippi and Alabama have joined the Southern Rail Commission, but Florida has not. And my understanding is that at the state level, Florida has to join the SRC as the first step toward basically trying to work in a coordinated fashion to get the Gulf Rail restored, Sunset Limited. So that'd be one thing for us. I know that our county staff, it's part of our legislative priorities at the county, and so our lobbyists are working on that, trying to look for an opportunity at the federal level to make that happen, especially with the infrastructure bill that's coming forth. So one thing we've talked about, Greg and I talked, I think either I talked about it with you, Greg, but I know I talked about it with our lobbyists, is actually having us trying to coordinate and get buy-in from the local governments along the way. Because if we can get those legislative districts, the House and Senate districts, and the Panhandle, the county commissions, city commissions on board, asking their legislators to appeal to the governor to get the SRC membership, that'd be a big first step. So, and with that, my remarks are concluded. Commissioner Merritt, I just want to make sure we're still in the time frame for you, sir.
Good, good.
Dr. Slay?
And I was going to say, I know DOT in years past has done at least one or two studies that really showed that it was not viable, but I do know they are in process, I believe, of doing a third one. So that's why I'd like to have a little time to follow up and find out what's going on with them. Maybe have Ricky Fitzgerald from Central Office, he's one of the rail guys, come in and give you all a presentation on DOT's perspective, because I mean, by and large, again, it's something that's probably going to be heavily subsidized, going to have to be heavily subsidized, and that's generally, I think, why you see the states like Mississippi, that are in support of it. But it's going to require some significant state, and potentially local subsidies. So that's really, to me, as always, where's the money going to come from?
And there is still conversation about, I guess, down south about the high-speed rail taking place as well. So, slow-speed rail, high-speed rail, let's talk rail. And let's get real about rail. How about that?
I like it. Commissioner Merritt, anything to add?
This is about how long our board meeting lasted last night. About 20 minutes.
Commissioner Dozier?
Good for Wakulla County. A little more business.
Get it done.
Greg, I think based on past performance of Amtrak service, particularly in the southeast, we could say a lot of areas of the country, I think the way you framed it with, I'll say, not optimistic about the demand because ridership has been decreasing, is that, I captured that properly? And heavily subsidized. I want to say, you know, bringing back this agenda item and whomever we bring into the room to talk to, that is the old way of looking at how we have maintained our rail system and really not maintained it for a long time. There are areas of the country that work a whole lot better. There's areas of the world, most of the rest of the world, work a whole lot better. If we're going to be creative about this, and I think the regional approach is really interesting, I think both Emerald Coast Planning Council and our Appalachia might be good vehicles to do some of that outreach, and both have talked about rail in the past. I know Appalachia has. Approaching it as how to get better rail service, get creative. Could we draw, you know, use one of the lines that goes down to the coast for more tourism, one of the smaller lines? Florida Gulf Atlantic has a lot of interest in working more regionally than CSX did. So we may even want to talk with them, the corporate representatives. I'm not sure if that is possible, but I think if we are going to do that outreach, we need to use some different language and think about how it's not just doing the same thing again that demands heavy government subsidy. It might need that up front to get started, but it's past time to start getting creative about this. All that said, it can't get done without a lot of federal investment. We know that. I hope the president, who has long been an Amtrak user, he's talked about that for decades. I hope this is on the agenda for the next 4 years. So I'm really glad you brought it up, Commissioner. But I really hope that we can start looking at it creatively, particularly if we're going to do that regional outreach. Thanks.
Just a timing question. Would you all be okay doing this at our October retreat? Because we've got a pretty extensive agenda next month, and then July and August we don't meet. So if you're good with that, then give me plenty of time.
By that time, we should know whether the infrastructure bill passed or not. So
That's right.
That could be
I see a bunch of head
the,
nods.
You're more optimistic on that than I am.
They're going to get it done, I'll tell you.
we're gonna go to Washington to make sure.
Yes, it's
Gave their
October.
counter-proposal today, so.
Oh,
So let's move on to 7A, the Florida Department of Transportation report.
Brian, I think you're going to have to come over here. I don't think that microphone's working. Oh, that's fine. Sorry, go ahead.
Good afternoon, CRTPA members. The department's got one item to update the board on today. That's an upcoming public hearing for the I-10 widening that we've got coming through this area. This is a segment from just west of the Midway exit to the current existing 6-lane section there west of Capitol Circle. We have a public hearing scheduled for Thursday, May 20th. It'll be held at the Florida Public Safety Institute off of Highway 90. The physical address is 75 Academy Drive, Havana, Florida. We'll have an open house from 5:30 to 6, and then a formal presentation from 6 until 6:30. This will also be made available as a hybrid meeting, so anyone wishing to view it online can go to our Northwest Florida Roads website and access the meeting that way. The public meeting scheduled for the widening of I-10 on the eastern side of Leon County, we anticipate that coming up in late June. I don't have the date for that one at this time, but just to give you a heads up on that one, it'll be coming soon also. And with that, that concludes the department's update. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I got a
Commissioner Richardson, then Commissioner Merritt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, and I don't want to put this on you because I started asking this question before you came as our representative, but the crosswalks on Orange Avenue, I am just absolutely frustrated with that. and I'm going to tell you why. I talked to the principal at NIMS Middle School recently, and he told me that, because there are kids that cross Midway, Orange Avenue, not at the traffic light, to get to NIMS, and he has had to send staff out to ensure that these kids go down to the traffic light to cross. And he hears cars out honking when the kids are and we can't get any movement on crosswalks, either here at NIMS, there on Orange Avenue, or Liberty Park. And I've been asking about this for years now. And I hope it doesn't take a tragedy happening for us to get answers to this and get action taken on it. But, Mr. Chairman, I'm just totally frustrated with it. Like I said, I hope that it doesn't take a tragedy happening, one of our kids getting injured or worse, in order for us to get movement on this. And I just hope that at least by the start of school next year, we can have some answers on when we can get those two crosswalks. We got the crosswalk at South Adams quicker than I've been able to get these two crosswalks done, and I'm just frustrated as to why we haven't been able to get that done by now, especially when the safety of our residents, and especially our young people, is in jeopardy there. So if we could get an answer to that.
We're moving on that on multiple fronts. Unfortunately, we've just not made any progress on any of those. But we'll definitely go back to our traffic operations office to see what we can expedite for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I was out there a couple of months ago, and I think I waited 10 minutes to be able to cross from the little convenience store there over to the school. So it is it's dangerous for an adult. So with the children there, I absolutely concur. Commissioner Merritt?
Ryan, it's about the time of year for me to start complaining about Crawfordville Highway again in Leon County. Sidewalks are dirt all over them, piles of dirt, not just little dirt and weeds. Every once in a while, they'll go out and weed whack it, but if they can get them fellows some Roundup, that would probably help a lot.
Okay.
Can't use Roundup.
Huh?
Can't use Roundup.
Call it something else then.
You get in trouble using Roundup.
But anyway.
We'll get the go-away juice.
There's sidewalks there. If this road was in this condition in Killearn, it just wouldn't happen. It's embarrassing to drive down to Waukon County. And it's in Leon County.
We'll touch base with our folks at Midway, and first of all, find what the disconnect is on that particular segment, why it's not, getting cleared like everything
Anybody that
else.
goes to Waukon County has driven down that road, you can see it on Crawfordville Highway. It's south of Capitol Circle. You take a right and go to Southwood, it's beautiful. You go south, and it's horrible. And I think it's contracted out. I tried to get Kristen to take Leon County to take it over, but I haven't heard anything back from her about it.
That's not in your district.
All right.
Forgive me, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Dozier.
I did pass it on to staff, and
I
county
think I
staff
talked to
were.
Brent about it.
You did, yes. At Public Works staff, forgive me, Mr. Chair, but my impression, county takes over some maintenance. We have some agreements with FDOT, but I don't know where that landed for that particular, the
Well,
maintenance of Crawfordville.
If this is just our standard maintenance, we
Yeah.
would not expect or want Leon County to have to handle any of that. That's just when you want vegetation or landscaping that goes above and beyond our
It's
normal.
sidewalks,
so-
it's not
Yes,
something you take a bush hog and,
we,
but whatever
Yeah.
schedule your contractor's on, maybe needs to be frequency increased.
yes, sir.
They need to take some shovels and get the dirt off the sidewalks. And it's just,
We'll
I
reach
think
out
the
to
point
them.
is
let 'em-
well received. Director Slay?
So where's the dirt coming from? Is it just
I'll-
blow off on
Runoff.
the road, or?
yeah, I
Off the
guess.
runoff.
I mean, it's,
Sure.
you got a lot of it has a abutment on it.
Right.
And then you got a sidewalk, then asphalt. Right up against that abutment, there's just dirt and there's weeds growing in it everywhere. And it's just not maintained. It's just not maintained. That's it.
Commissioner Dozier?
Mr. Chair, I think we've covered this. I would just say that, yes, this is an annual request, and I do want to say that I think Public Works reached out to you last year, but also to FDOT, and the maintenance was eventually done. So I agree that it's more of a scheduling issue than who controls it. So
'Cause I
think
talked to
Brent's got
Suzanne
it.
about this,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times. contractor was having some health problems and this and that, and so just
right.
whatever the frequency probably needs to be increased.
Any other
We
questions
we
for
still got some
FDOT?
shovels and stuff at DOT. We'll get it
Good.
fixed.
There's plenty of prisoners out there just dying to get out of jail and do something.
All right, moving on to the executive director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. On the MCORS legislation, Senate Bill 100 did wind up passing, I think, to a lot of people's surprise. As of this morning, the governor has not signed it yet, and I'm not able to really track it through the website, but it did pass the House and the Senate, so I assume at some point he will sign it.
Or he has 30 days, right?
I believe so when it's presented to him, but
From
I
when it was
don't know that it's been presented to him or not. I'm not sure. Like I said, I wasn't able to track that down on the website this morning.
I believe our board will take credit for all the movement on that item.
It was very interesting to watch because for the longest time there was no activity, and then all of a sudden, bang, bang, it was done. It was one of the more odd ones this session. I mentioned about the member request that we submitted to Congressman Lawson's office. And just to give you a heads up, we will be bringing you an amendment to our regional mobility plan next month to add some transit projects. If you recall, when y'all adopted it back in November, we were waiting for the completion of Star Metro's transit development plan along with their comprehensive operations analysis. Timing-wise, I'm a little concerned that since we didn't list any transit projects in our regional mobility plan, we may run into some conflicts with consistency in the TIP when you adopt it next month. So in essence, what we're doing is taking some of the projects from the last regional mobility plan that included adding additional buses, the CK Steel Plaza, the South City Transit Center, and adding those in with the idea that we'll come back probably later on in the year when both the transit development plan and the operations analysis are done and update it one more time. But to have that consistency, we can go ahead and just kind of stick what we had in there last time so we don't have any issues with that. And Mr. Chair, that's all I had.
I have a question.
Excellent. Commissioner Williams-Cox, followed by Commissioner Richardson.
Mr. Executive Director, I know you mentioned the member projects to Congressman Lawson's office. Did you also submit it to Congressman Dunn's office as well?
What we were told was they were looking for projects in their specific districts, and we could not find any on our list that met the requirements that they were, in essence, ready to go to construction in Congressman Dunn's office that were not, the Capital Circle projects, they were not multi-million-dollar projects. We didn't have one that really fit that criteria.
Okay, when you mentioned North Monroe, I just kind of thought that because of the way the way the city is broken up there, that may have been in his district, but okay.
No, ma'am, that was actually by probably a quarter of a mile in Congressman Lawson's
Okay,
district.
okay.
'Cause that's
Thank
the
you.
first thing they ask us.
Thank you.
His district.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question, Greg, could you give us an update? It doesn't have to be now, but I'm curious as to know where we are in the process of the widening of the segment of Orange Avenue from South Adams to Lake Bradford Road or out to Capitol Circle. I know they've done the PD&E.
Done the PD&E. I think it's not officially finished yet, but they've started, I believe, on the design from Monroe to South Lake Bradford Road. They're just west of the little convenience store. They originally took it to Spring Hill Road. We asked them to go ahead and extend it to South Lake Bradford so we could pick up the Liberty Park area. That's one of the areas we identified in the Southwest Area Transportation Plan as, needing the sidewalks and things like that. So I get some preliminary discussions with the department. One of the things that they think they're going to have, if there is for lack of a better term, I'll say a stimulus portion of the $3 or $4 trillion package they're talking, that could potentially be a project. If there's not a lot of right-of-way, then I'm afraid there will be. But we're having some conversations with them to identify some of these projects that we might be able to do it as a design build. I'm not sure Orange Avenue will fit that bill, but we're definitely at least going to have that conversation to do what we can to expedite it.
All right. Whatever we can do, because traffic on Orange Avenue, it's getting kind of out of control. I mean, it's hard in some areas. I'd live just off of Orange Avenue. And mornings and afternoons, And as a matter of fact, I had a young lady call me the other day and inquired about that widening, because it's just sometimes very difficult to get onto Orange Avenue with the amount of traffic that we're starting to see. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williams-Cox?
And on that note, Greg, could we just continuously get updates on where we are on that?
Sure.
So that we can, because I know I live off of Orange as well, and we get asked all the time about, when are y'all gonna do this, when are you gonna do that? So that we're able to speak intelligently, unless you would like for me to give them your phone number.
Either way.
Well, I would do.
Well, Commissioner, I'm looking, I know on our project updates, Jack, are we including the road projects on our project update list?
We did not this time, but we can update the projects
Yeah.
for next time.
On each of your agendas, under informational items, there's a project update, and like Capitol Circle is on there, but yeah, I'm not seeing Orange. So we can expand that to include Orange Avenue.
Okay,
And
thank
that
you.
way you get that every month.
And Crawford Highway, please.
Crawfordville Highway is actually on there.
It just says nothing happening.
20% completed?
I'm talking about the next section that we
Oh.
need right-of-way funding for.
Okay, yeah, no.
All right. Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Picking up on that question about the updates, I want to acknowledge the website has improved dramatically over the years, so no criticism necessarily. But Blueprint has been adding additional updates, project updates, more, I can't say real time, but more current than we've ever been in the past. And it may be something we want to think about, even quarterly, something like that, just to add a little bit more detail, particularly if citizens are asking about a particular project like Orange, and then it's something you can direct them back to. I don't know if that would work. It won't work for everybody on a website, but just a thought, wondering if we could do that in the future. That was piggybacking on that, Mr. Chair. I did want to just say, and perhaps our county chairman, Commissioner Minor, may help me remember, or if I get the details wrong here, you could correct me. But in discussion time at last week's commission meeting, Commissioner Proctor brought up the question about Congressman Lawson's ask, and he asked staff to look at the Leon County portion of Crawfordville Highway. So that was certainly a lot more funding required than what you just described, and we didn't get into that level of conversation about the level of funding that was being offered necessarily. But if I'm remembering correctly, we asked staff to bring something back to us. Is that correct, Mr. Chair? Or the other chair?
Commissioner Minor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I believe we went around a couple of ways
Yeah.
on that discussion thread, but I think the end result was that in conjunction with the legislative update, we're also going to have a synopsis of what the infrastructure bill and Congressman Lawson's involvement in that to our community might be. So that's how I remember the resolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Reiner. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention that for the record, since we've been talking about Congressman Lawson's ask.
Absolutely.
Just real quick, I'd gotten a heads up that that was a topic of discussion, so I went back and listened to the tape. Just so you know, and I'd follow this back up with DOT, portions of it's broken out into two segments, have been partially designed. And I know there was some discussion about possibly moving it forward. I would say that's probably difficult to do since the design hasn't been done. And again, similar to what we talked about with Orange Avenue, if there's significant right-of-way acquisition, that may make it, harder to do it through any federal money that comes through. Not necessarily impossible, but that's a long jump from not even done with design to construction.
Because I remember I asked about this. I thought the portion from 319 from, what's the road there, just north of Oak Ridge? Basically, I was told the portion from Oak Ridge north had right-of-way, had design complete, everything was done.
That's not what I got from the department this morning. The term they
I
used was
questioned that, and I said,
partially.
I don't think that's true.
The quote that I got, it was partially designed, and I said, I've never heard of a partial design, since I haven't seen any design money on the project since I've been here.
You almost had me convinced that it was designed.
Yeah,
I
so I don't
said,
know,
I
Brian,
don't
have
think
you-
so. And
This goes way back when we first started that PD&E, probably 15, 18 years ago. The department did jump in there, and we designed the majority of that corridor. This particular segments here, we only designed them to 60% plan so we could set the right-of-way need, and that's kind of where it sits.
Gotcha.
So it is at 60%, but those are pretty old plans. It'd take a pretty good, update to get them up to speed and then on to 100%.
Well, that goes back to then on our long-term transportation plan, that section was put above the section in Crawfordville because we were told that it had a design was done and right-of-way was done, remember? So hopefully that means our Crawfordville section now will move back up. Do we need to redo the tip? or-
Well, and I think it would depend, following up on what Bryant said. I mean, if it was done at 60%, 60% plans, and Brian, I talked to Mark Brock this morning about this, and he wasn't sure even about that. If those plans are 15 years old or better, I'm thinking you're probably going back in a complete redesign
Well,
because.
my point is that it ranks above Crawfordville, which has 100% plans.
Correct.
And we desperately, desperately need that. I don't really care about that section we're talking about, to be honest with you, because traffic flows pretty smooth. I'm worried about traffic backing up for literally a mile in downtown Crawfordville.
And I don't think, it's always up to you all. I don't think it would make that much difference because it still has to go through design, and that's a much smaller amount of money to get as opposed to right away. Since that portion has already gone through design, that will be the next phase to be funded, will be right away.
Anything to add, Commissioner Merritt? All right, we're moving on. Any comments on information items or items from board members? Commissioner Maddox?
Real quick, I think you all, I think you may know, MPOAC is going through the process of finding a new executive director. Carmen Kuskic has stepped down. He's now Polk County? Pasco County MPO director. And so at our last meeting, we created a technical committee to have conversation about what the role of the executive director will actually look like and how much we want that role to run through FDOT versus maybe an MPO and what kind of flexibilities that we may have there. So as it sits now, I believe that the interim is Jeff. Yeah, Jeff has become interim, who was number 2 before. He'll probably be in place until, I would say, February, March. At that point, we are looking at putting out what's what I'm looking for? A request for applications, I guess, for other applicants to come in. We're looking at statewide first, and then if we don't find anybody statewide, we'll open it up to the whole nation. We're hoping to find somebody statewide, though, because they'll know more about FDOT and what we do here in the state of Florida. And so when the technical committee comes back we'll create a job description as well as a announcement and request for application for the executive director, and then we'll move forward from there. So far, so good as far as our interim is concerned. I feel good about his competency in handling the position, as he's been with MPOAC for a long, long time. I think the thing that you all need to know most of the conversation is around whether, as in the past, MPOAC has been very state-focused. There is some conversation about whether that position will continue to be that, focusing on lobbying the state and stuff like that, or whether it be more MPO-focused, where it would be more an assistance of the MPOs across the state, or whether it would be a hybrid of the two. So the process is moving along. Any conversation that the board wants me to take back, I'll take back. Like I said, right now we're in the technical committee is looking at it. They'll bring it back to us in July. And then at that point, we'll try to put something out with a true job description and move from there. Did I miss anything from our meeting, Greg?
No, that was the big topic of discussion.
Oh, last thing is also we had a very short conversation about alternative sources of income for transportation funding. They presented some things that had been talked about 20 years ago, I believe it was. And 20 years ago, they were having a conversation about how eventually the gas tax was not going to be sufficient to fund transportation. They were having that conversation 20 years ago. They came up with the alternatives, and so the same alternatives they came up with then, we still have now. The conversation was had of, do we want to do another report about the standings of where we sit now and what can be done? And I don't think much has changed. The big part of the conversation was trying to push the state to do its own independent study to get the conversation going about how we move forward with alternative ways. the locals, MPOAC or MPOs going to the state about what we think is going to move the ball, us getting them to look at it and then supporting them actually taking alternative measures is going to be more about what moves the ball. So, for example, us going to say, hey, we want you to look at mileage traveled or, tire fees or just one flat fee. I think that we decided that wasn't the way to go, more so than, hey, get serious about this thing, do a study, give some options, and we will tell you which one we will support, more so than us giving you options. So that was a big part of the conversation as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the update. Any further business before the board? Commissioner Richardson.
Just very quickly, Greg, you mentioned the sidewalk on Bluntstown. Just want to let you all know that work has begun on that. The citizens over there are very excited about it. There's clearly a need. I mean, there was a footpath you wouldn't believe, and it was definitely needed. But they have started work on that. I don't know where they are right now. I haven't been over in that area for a little bit, but the work has started.
Those footpaths are about that deep.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to flag one thing. I'm not sure if we skipped over this, but the meeting schedule, our September 21st meeting, as happens most year, and Greg, forgive me if I didn't mention this to you, that overlaps with Florida Association of Counties conference, and in past years, some of us have been able to leave after the meeting. This one happens to be in South Florida, so that may present a challenge. I'm not sure if my county colleagues plan to attend that. I will be there. So just wanted to flag that. You may want to check in with county folks about September 21st.
Yes, ma'am. And typically, as it gets closer, we'll kind of, we'll move the date around if we have to. That's what we've done in years past.
Okay. I believe Blueprint, well, I think Blueprint may be doing the same for the 23rd, but I'm not sure about that yet. I was going to check on that for next week, so thank
I think
you.
we typically find out how many of you are going and who's going. So, and if we need to, we can move it around.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comment? We're adjourned.
All right, well.